I close my eyes, I see her face. There's so many questions, still yet no answers. She didn't deserve to die like that.
On February 26, 2023, Oakland, California awoke to horror. Along Interstate 580 near the 73rd Avenue exit, the lifeless body of 36-year-old newlywed Letha Humphrey McCowan was discovered, shot in the head, and left on the cold pavement. Not long before this horrifying discovery, she had been a radiant bride having a beautiful wedding, but something along that horrifying night, something went wrong. And the person responsible was her own husband, 49-year-old Nathaniel McCowan, who insists he had nothing to do with her death. But as investigators dug deeper, they began to uncover a dark chain of events, revealing that what happened between the vows and the gunshots was far more sinister than anyone imagined. This is the life and death of Letha Humphrey McCowan. Her story would take us to the city of Oakland, California, a place known for its vibrant culture, historic neighborhoods, and deep-rooted music and art scene. But beneath that rich identity lies a troubling reality. Oakland's violent crime rate is significantly higher than the national average, with certain categories exceeding it by well over 100%. It is within this city, where community pride stands side by side with persistent danger, that the events of Letha's final night would unfold, setting the stage for a tragedy that would grip the community. Born into a close-knit family, Letha Humphrey grew up surrounded by relatives who knew her as ambitious, stylish, and full of life. She was deeply committed to her loved ones and carried herself with confidence. After finishing her schooling, she pursued work as an entrepreneur, building a livelihood that allowed her to express her drive and independence. Letha was also a devoted mother, balancing her personal aspirations with raising her children. Her public persona reflected someone who valued growth and resilience. By 2016, her social media was filled with motivational messages, faith-based affirmations, and reflections on relationships. Yet in between those positive declarations, there were glimpses of vulnerability, a subtle search for validation and belonging. It was during this period that she quietly began a new relationship. She kept the man's identity hidden, never posting his image or name, instead referring to him vaguely as a mystery man. This was intentional. She knew his past would invite scrutiny and criticism. That man was Nathaniel McCowan. When Letha finally revealed their relationship to the world on July 22, 2017, the truth about Nath's past was already written in court records, and it was violent. This was not someone with a handful of poor decisions behind him. This was a man tied to a killing that left a young child motherless. Nearly 2 decades earlier, in 1998, Nathaniel had been charged in the murder of 22-year-old Yolanda Dedman, his own brother's mistress. The circumstances were grim. Yolanda had been involved with Nate's brother, Emmanuel McCowan, despite Emmanuel being married. When Emmanuel grew fearful she might reveal their affair, possibly through letters, he turned to Nathaniel to retrieve them. That request set in motion an act of violence that would shock the community. The following day, an 8-year-old boy walking to baseball practice came upon a scene that would haunt anyone. Yolanda's body, stripped naked, stabbed 18 times, beaten, and shot in the head. Inside her apartment, her 4-year-old daughter was found alone. Emmanuel McCowan was ultimately convicted of murder, torture, and the use of a knife, receiving a life sentence without parole. Nathaniel, however, managed to avoid the same fate. Court records indicate that, at the time of the earlier case, Nathaniel's girlfriend told police he had admitted to shooting the victim, and she also provided authorities with details about his involvement in drug dealing. Despite this, the prosecution's case unraveled in court when a single juror refused to convict, a decision that would later prove haunting as it meant releasing a man whose own history showed he was capable of extreme and lethal violence. Instead of a murder conviction, prosecutors agreed to a plea deal that reduced the charge to voluntary manslaughter, carrying a 7-year sentence. It was a short punishment for a killing that left a child without a mother. Nathaniel served his term and, once released, returned to Oakland. It was after his release that Letha came into his life. In the beginning, their relationship flourished with a kind of affection and shared joy that made it appear unshakable. They seemed deeply connected, and by 2018, they were engaged. On August 3rd of that year, they married, and Letha embraced her role as a wife with visible pride. Remember the wedding video that you've seen in the beginning? That was how beautiful their supposed love story seemed. And more to this, she often shared posts expressing her loyalty and devotion to Nathaniel, portraying their bond as one built on trust and unity. Her public updates painted a picture of unwavering commitment, as if a love alone could eclipse the shadows of his past. To her, their union symbolized a victory, proof that she had achieved the stability she had longed for. Yet beneath the surface, that same past was waiting, an unspoken threat that would soon begin to show itself. By August 19, the first clear signs of deterioration in their relationship began to emerge. Her social media posts became more reflective, noting that their years together had not been perfect, but they continued to choose love each day. She paired this sentiment with a Bible verse about unity in marriage. Privately, however, the tone of the marriage was shifting. Over time, her posts moved away from declarations of love and became centered on her own image and personal reflections. The man she had once prominently featured in her online life had faded from view, and for someone once so open, that absence carried weight. Then came the night of February 26, 2023. That evening, Letha and Nathaniel attended a birthday party of a friend of theirs in Oakland. But as the evening wore on, an unsettling turn began to take shape. The marriage, already showing signs of breakdown, reached a boiling point, and an argument erupted between the couple as they left the party that night. As they drove through the road, the argument swelled into something far more dangerous, its intensity fed by the alcohol they had consumed at the party. Every mile toward Interstate 580 felt like a slow march toward disaster. When they reached that stretch of road, Nathaniel brought the car to a stop, and in that moment, the night turned from tense to deadly. What followed was an act of cold, unflinching brutality. In a sudden fit of rage, he shot his wife in the head. As Letha crumpled to the ground, the violence did not stop. His cruelty extended to stomp on her as she lay helpless. Unbeknownst to Nathaniel, a passerby traveling along that highway had witnessed this cruelty. Meanwhile, after ending his wife's life, Nathaniel abandoned her body on the side of Interstate 580 near the Edwards Avenue off-ramp and drove away, showing no sign of remorse for the cruelty he had just committed. And there, Letha lay lifeless for hours. And it wasn't until 1:20 a.m. when the California Highway Patrol responded to a call that led them to the dead 49-year-old. And right then and there, Letha was pronounced dead at the scene by the paramedics. From that moment, police were certain they were dealing with a murder. It took a little time to confirm the victim was Letha, and their next step was to reach out to the last person known to be with her husband Nathaniel, who in a chilling twist of irony had already reported her missing. When Nathaniel was confronted by police about what had happened that night, he offered his version of events. He said that as their argument escalated that night at around 2 a.m., while intoxicated, he dropped her off on 73rd Avenue in Oakland before crashing his car and walking home. He then insisted that he did not know what happened to her after that, but the reality was far more sinister. From the moment he spoke, investigators felt the weight of something unspoken. The nature of the crime was too chilling, the details too thin, and the man before them too practiced in violence to take at his word. Their unease deepened when they uncovered his past, a past already stained with another homicide, and they began to fear that the juror's decision years earlier to let him walk free had unleashed a man capable of far greater horrors. From the very start of the investigation, Nathaniel's story failed to sit right with the detectives. The timeline he offered was riddled with gaps, and his demeanor seemed almost performative, as if he were playing the role of a concerned husband while avoiding any real accountability. Investigators quickly began piecing together evidence that contradicted his claims. Witness statements placed him with Letha near the location where her body was found. The passerby, who had seen a man stomping a woman on the freeway, provided a crucial lead. That single observation, though horrifying, became one of the first solid connections linking Nathaniel to the murder scene. Detectives began to trace Nathaniel's movements that night. Traffic and surveillance cameras became silent witnesses, their recordings mapping out a route that aligned with the timeline of Letha's death. The pattern was clear. Nathaniel had not simply dropped his wife off and driven away. He had taken her to a place where the darkness of the early morning hours concealed his brutality. As the investigation unfolded, more of Nathaniel's past began to resurface, painting a picture not of a man who had left his violent history behind, but of one who had simply hidden it well enough to move through life unchecked. Detectives revisited old case files, speaking again with those who had known him during his first brush with the law. Many expressed a little surprise that Nathaniel was once again at the center of a homicide investigation. But despite mounting suspicion, building a case strong enough to hold up in court would take time. Forensic analysis was slow. Witnesses needed to be located, statements verified, and evidence linked beyond doubt. And in those months, then years, Nathaniel remained a free man, moving about the city while Letha's loved ones lived with the pain of knowing the man they believed had taken her life was still out there. During that period, he did not live quietly, far from it. Nathaniel continued socializing, showing up at events, and carrying on as if nothing had happened. It was this arrogance that haunted Letha's friends and family. They knew what he had done, even if the courts had yet to say it aloud. Behind the scenes, law enforcement pushed forward. Digital evidence was combed through. Phone records, location data, and communications in the days leading up to the murder. Each new piece added weight to the case they were building, strengthening the link between Nathaniel and the events on Interstate 580 that night. However, the battle to justice proved to be a difficult feat. 2 years have passed and they still haven't incriminated the suspect. But just as the case came to a stall, a breakthrough happened. On January 2nd, 2025, the years of hard work of the investigators reached a turning point. That night, California Highway Patrol officers found Nathaniel not in hiding, but at Sky River Casino. He was gambling, surrounded by the noise of slot machines and the bright lights of the gaming floor, a setting that was a huge contrast to the violence he was accused of committing. And to make matters worse, there was no remorse. While the evidence gathered was not disclosed publicly, one thing was clear. His arrest was swift. Nathaniel was taken into custody and booked into Santa Rita Jail without bail. In jail, he was given severe charges that mirrored the brutality of what he had done. The list was damning: murder, corporal injury to a partner, and possession of a firearm by a felon. If convicted, these charges could condemn him to spend 56 years to life behind bars. It was a decisive moment, yet the shadow of his crime still hung heavy. For Letha's friends and family, the news brought a bittersweet sense of relief. The man they believed had taken her from them was finally behind bars. But that relief could not erase the nearly 2 years of waiting, years in which her children grew up without their mother, and her loved ones carried the weight of grief and anger. The arrest also reignited public attention on the case, with many openly expressing their outrage at how long it had taken to bring charges.
It's simply just right versus wrong, we're not here to be bad at cops or anything. We're here against bad people. We just want to see what's done right. If this would have been anybody else in this situation, we just want the same thing that would have happened to them to happen to the people that did it.
In their view, Nathaniel's past should have been reason enough to treat him as a prime suspect from the very beginning. The case has also sparked deeper conversations about recognizing warning signs, the dangers of overlooking violent histories.
So everyone, change this lifestyle, just get out if you can.
And the long delays that often keep dangerous individuals on the streets. It stands as a grim reminder that the justice system's pace, while deliberate, can feel unbearably slow for those left waiting. Yet the system had to move at its own pace, and for nearly 24 months, that pace felt agonizingly slow. Still, with Nathaniel now facing trial, the possibility of justice for Letha Humphrey McCowan had finally begun to take shape. Even if the road to get there had been paved with delays, frustration, and the lingering fear of what he might have done had he been left free for even longer, And yet, as of now, there have been no further public updates, leaving the outcome hanging in an uneasy silence. And so, the story of Letha Humphrey McCowan remains both a tragedy and a warning. Her life, full of potential, family, and dreams, ended on a dark stretch of road in the early hours of the morning. As of now, the case has no further public updates, leaving the community waiting once again, hoping that the final chapter will bring the justice she deserves. What do you think could have been done to prevent this tragedy? And what are your thoughts on the long road it took to bring charges in this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story important, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on cases like this.